Coming up,
She gave me a whole new purpose to be a dad.
Australian parents caught up
How that is in the best interest of children, I'm not too sure.
in a Japanese nightmare.
Such a irrational rule.
Will they ever be
The
allowed
worst experience of my life.
to see their kids again?
It's extremely frustrating.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
There are many wonderful things about Japan, but the way the country deals with child custody disputes is not one of them. The Japanese have a bizarre law that allows a disgruntled parent who separates from their spouse to literally abduct their children and run away. In those circumstances, it makes kidnapping legal. Worryingly, an increasing number of Australians whose relationships with their Japanese partners have ended have found themselves permanently cut off from their kids. It's a heartbreaking situation. But, as the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age's Eryk Bagshaw reports, there might finally be some hope for change. And it's in no small way thanks to Canberra.
Yui just made everybody's world a better place to be in. She gave me a whole new purpose of what it means to be a man, to be an adult, and now to be a dad.
It's Yui-chan and Daddy.
It's been 14 months since Dan White held his daughter Yui in his arms. She's in Japan, thousands of kilometres away from her Queensland home. But she's always on his mind.
As more time goes on, I know less about who she is. I don't know what she's into, I don't know what she likes, what she don't like, what she eats.
Yui is one of 89 Australian children cut off from a parent because of Japan's cruel sole custody laws. The country has a bizarre system where divorced couples can't co-parent. Instead, whoever was last living with the kids gets to keep them and the power to block the other parent's access. The most troubling thing is it allows parents to kidnap their children and get away with it. How do you think Japan treats children?
Like furniture. Just like when a couple splits up, you can't split a sofa in half. One person keeps the sofa and the other one's expected to move out and get a new sofa for their place. And that's what Japan does, but with children.
Dan had no idea these would be the last photos he'd ever take with his daughter. She was born in Australia, and Dan thought he and his Japanese partner's happy life here would last forever. But everything changed when they took Yui to Japan to meet her grandparents. He came home to Queensland 2 weeks early to return to work. But his daughter and her mum never did.
I'd called her to check when she was coming back, and she just simply said, I'm not coming back. And at that point, I broke down. It was the worst experience of my life.
Dan is now part of a club he wishes didn't exist.
Oh, it's distressing every day.
Over in Japan, there's a growing group of Australian parents whose kids have been abducted by their ex-partners.
It's extremely devastating and frustrating and upsetting continuously, and it just never ends.
They, along with hundreds of other foreign parents, have spent years calling for new laws to allow joint custody. 9 foreign governments led by Australia have lobbied on their behalf. And finally, an extraordinary sign that Japan has listened. Last month, the Parliament made a monumental decision, voting to give divorced couples the option to co-parent.
Both parents can appropriately take custody for their children for the first time in Japan.
It's been a long and lonely fight for Masahiko Shibayama. He's been a member of Japan's government for more than 20 years. But until recently, he was the only one who wanted to change the outdated sole custody system.
Fighting against such a traditional, irrational Japanese rule was very, very hard.
How did you feel when the law passed?
I was tremendously satisfied.
The new law will come into effect in 2026. It sounds promising, but unfortunately, there's a catch. Shared custody will only be possible when both parents agree to it. So in many cases, it won't make any difference.
It's one step forward for Japan, but it's one step forward for a country that's many steps behind.
Why do you think the Japanese government changed these laws?
I think there was a lot of international pressure. I think Japan believed that they had to do something to relieve that pressure. And as a result of that, they did the bare minimum.
That's a bit rough.
It's a huge concern shared by Randy Kavanagh.
First word she spoke was daddy.
His daughter Anna was taken by her mum in 2018. He considered himself lucky to be granted visitation rights by the Japanese courts. But the problem is they've never been enforced, so he still can't see his little girl.
I will have to apply again in 2 years when these new laws come into effect. How that is in the best interest of children, I'm not too sure.
So you think that delay risks more children potentially becoming victims of child abduction?
It seems as though it's the last dash to the finish line to abduct your child before the law comes into effect.
Despite his reservations, Randy believes the new law is better than nothing. And Australia's Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, agrees.
Well, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? And I think a parent's heartbreak is always cuts deep. If you're a parent yourself, that you always think about how you would feel in that situation. So I'm sure.
This is the first time the Foreign Minister has given an interview about this issue. For years, she led a strategy of quiet diplomacy, refusing to publicly take a stand against Japan's old-fashioned laws. Is that because you're afraid of offending them as a close military and diplomatic ally?
Look, obviously, when you're a person in this role, there are some things you might achieve through having an interview with Eryk Bagshaw, and there might be other things you achieve by raising things in a direct but careful way.
It's an approach the Minister insists is finally starting to pay off. She says the Australian government worked incredibly hard behind the scenes to encourage and then help Japan to update its archaic system.
I've raised it with 2 foreign ministers that I've engaged with over time. We had the Attorney General raise it with the Minister of Justice. We had the Ambassador raise it at many levels. And we also had a judge from the Family Court of Australia who engaged with the Japanese system overall.
There are some parents who say the Australian government could have done more.
Oh, look, I hear that. If I were in the position of these families, if I were a parent whose child who hadn't seen my kids, I'd want to see as much as I could.
The Japanese government is pleased it's achieved some progress. But even they accept this isn't the end of the story. Masahiko Shibayama says it will take years to shift social views and test whether the changes go far enough to stop parents abducting their kids.
The new law does not ban the abduction directly, but abduction is, of course, against the main idea of this revised law.
You're saying it's just against the spirit of the legislation. Can parents really trust that's going to make a difference?
I want to say the suffered parents to continue to have hope.
Uh-oh. Oh, wait there. What's this one?
Back in Queensland, Dan White has already had a small win.
What's this? Yu-chan, what's
After
this?
relentless requests, his ex-partner has agreed to give him one 10-minute video call with Yui each week. It doesn't sound like much, but at least it gives Dan some comfort to see his daughter still knows who he is.
They're the best 10 minutes of the week. I spend most of my week planning around that 10 minutes. What am I going to do? How am I going to teach her a bit of English? How am I going to keep her attention? Uh-oh, where's Yu-chan gone? Hello, where's Yu-chan? Hey, Yu-chan, your Mickey Mouse t-shirt. My goal is to actually be able to go to Japan and take her to Disneyland. Yeah, I want to take her there and, spoil her and take her on the rides and, yeah, I want us to do that together.
Have you got any hope of doing that?
I've got faith, but ultimately, the change won't be enough until I have my daughter back in my arms.
Hello, I'm Amelia Adams. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.